My name's Alison and I am 36 years old and I run my own business and I have 3 amazing children. When I heard that my second baby, Patrick, was breech, it was just something that was offered that I would, if it eventuated to the end, that I would be offered a C-section. But there was never really any thought about, never really any discussion about whether I would have it naturally or I'll go down the C-section route. It was just that at the end of the day, if it still remained breech, that I would continue and have a C-section. So, and that's what we did. I didn't learn about the ECV procedure at that time. It was definitely offered to me as an option, but we definitely didn't go into detail about the process and the procedure of how they did it. So that was, it was probably that thing where they explained it, but it wasn't something that we really went into detail about. Yeah, a little bit of apprehension, I suppose, when they'd asked me about you know, what they could offer with the ECV. But again, it was all about this turning. It was a bit shocking, the whole concept of getting the baby inside you turned. So again, we didn't go into detail. There was no detail about it at that point. And that we're going back now 3 years. So at that point, when with Patrick, no, there wasn't any detail about it. Exactly. It was part of an option. It was part of a discussion, but it didn't go down the track of all my other appointments. Patrick was breech for a long period of time as well. So Patrick was breech from, you know, at least 10 weeks, like Annabelle as well. So we always had a breech baby, and we were always waiting for that breech baby to turn itself, but it never did. So I was offered a C-section at late 38 weeks, 39 weeks to have that done. What options were put forward for Patrick? All I can remember really was I was offered the C-section if I got to that stage and we were just waiting on that baby to turn itself. I didn't really go into detail about the process of the other ones, so therefore what factors did I consider? It was really just this, you know, I could have it naturally if it turned itself, basically. But yeah, it wasn't like this one, no. I've heard, did I try other methods to turn Patrick? I've heard that you can do it other ways, standing on all fours, doing some yoga positions, but no, not for Patrick. I didn't really do anything else than just go down that path. The actual delivery and the surgery itself was okay. I had my babies at the Mater Hospital, you know, a beautiful hospital to have your babies in. So the actual surgery itself was fine. The actual process of the delivery and, you know, meeting Patrick for the first time, because I'd had my other firstborn, you know, normally, was great. For me, it was everything after that. So from the surgery onwards to getting into the recovery room to having to come down from all the drugs and then not being able to see my baby until you recover. All those things past that point, and the pain of going through that surgery was something that I didn't realise was going to be so traumatic, I think. Yeah, the recovery process I found really difficult. Yes, I recovered really nicely in 3 to 4 weeks. It wasn't a painful process in the sense that, sorry, it wasn't a long process in the sense that I had, you know, it took a longer period of time to recover, but I certainly had another child to deal with, and I really needed a lot of help from family and friends and husband, so to get back on the straight and narrow. How did I feel when I heard that Annabelle was breech? I was pretty adamant that I was going to try and find anything I possibly could to not have another C-section. It was, if it had to happen, I was okay. Like, I was okay that if I had to go down that path, but I definitely in this pregnancy asked a lot more questions about it, about what could happen, why this baby's breech again, you know, all of those kind of things were definitely at the forefront of my mind when I was talking to my obstetrician in our appointments. First and foremost, the ECV came into play at that point. It was very early on that Annabelle was a breech baby, so from about 30 weeks we started the discussion, and every appointment I had after that we went into more detail about, you know, what was going to happen if I did do that. My obstetrician had another obstetrician that said that she could do it very, very well. She was known to be able to turn them quite easily, so she imparted her to come along and help me out. So the reason I probably went with an ECV is that my life is really busy. I run my own business. I had 2 kids, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. Going through the process of a Caesar beforehand, a C-section beforehand, and knowing how difficult it was for the recovery process. I just couldn't see that in my household I'd have the time to recover with those 2 boys, and also be able to, you know, help and nurse Annabelle as well. So definitely the busyness of my life and the fact that I wanted to get back on my feet as quickly as possible when I got home was, yeah, definitely a major factor. Absolutely, yeah. My husband definitely was part of the process of what we were going to do with the ECV. And it was just a really simple decision for us. It was something that, yeah, we'll try anything. We knew that the risks were quite low in terms of, you know, any complications with Annabelle. And again, once having the ECV, the people at the Mater were we definitely were monitoring my baby. I had to go in the second day to get another monitor on her heart and all those kind of things to make sure everything was fine. So I think the risks outweighed what it was going to be like for me anyway. Yeah, I had a big something coming up in my business quite quickly after the birth, so that was within 4 to 6 weeks that I had to really focus on my business for a period of time. So that's why that was definitely a decision I had to make, that I wanted to be ready for that big business opportunity that was coming up, as well as have Annabelle and be on my feet. Yeah. I definitely went to my obstetrician and asked her what could be done. I had heard about an ECV, but I certainly hadn't read or gone into depth about it. So at that point, we definitely you know, discussed in depth about what the procedure was like and what they would do, you know, and made that decision together as well, that would be what I would try. Yeah. Probably my feelings about the ECV was it was going to hurt. That was the biggest thing. Will they hurt me and will they hurt the baby? How could you turn this baby inside me and it not be painful? That was the biggest thing. And I still walked into the procedure thinking that that was going to be what it was going to be like. But it wasn't as painful as anything I'd imagined, to be honest. They do a little needle under your uterus, which I'm assuming relaxes your uterus so they can get the turn happening. But you know, it was nothing. It was done in a couple of minutes and the monitoring started. So that was, the time was in the monitoring the baby as opposed to the actual procedure itself. I definitely felt apprehensive when I got in there. You do go to the delivery suites where you're going to deliver your baby, so that was interesting of where I was having it. They definitely explained exactly what was going to going to happen with the needle and then the ultrasound and all of those kind of things, how they were going to look at the baby and how they were going to turn the baby. But again, in my mind, the actual turning was, how are you going to get the head to come to the bottom if it's not going to be painful? And it was not. I mean, it was, they definitely push on your stomach and everything, but it certainly wasn't anything that I imagined. No. The procedure feels like a really hard push. The procedure literally for me only took no more than 5 minutes. It was the preparation for the procedure that was the long time, and the post part of the procedure, which is monitoring the baby's heartbeat and all of those kind of things afterwards. But the procedure itself was literally like you're pushing down on your stomach, and all of a sudden the obstetrician went, "Okay, we're done." And I went, "I thought you were just finding the head and finding her bottom. I didn't realise that the actual procedure was over." She said, "Yep, we're all good." And I went, "Okay." That was weird. That was very interesting. That was all over. It was that easy. Not at all. There was no pain. It's a pushing sensation, but there's certainly no pain, and there's certainly no pain afterwards on, you know, anything, any part of your body. Yeah. If I was to have another baby again, and I'm probably not because it's my third, I would definitely have an ECV again, definitely, without a moment's thought. I think with any type of pain and medication, you pay for it either after you have it. If you can have your baby as naturally as possible, the pain later, you have to deliver it, but the pain later is less. So I even rang a girlfriend after it who was booked in for her C-section to say that my ECV was simple, it didn't hurt, and her obstetrician still thought that it was worthwhile for her to have a C-section. So it was interesting that I was trying to say, okay, this is how it went for me. You know, it was easy, it was this, it was that, and she still went down that path. Interesting. No, there was no complications from the birth of Annabelle. Being my third baby, it was slow at the start and then went quite quick at the end. But I also did go into labour at about early 38 weeks. The procedure for the ECV was done at late 36 weeks, and I understand now that they keep the procedure quite late on in your pregnancy so that, you know, you don't, if the head goes down and all of those kind of things, you don't go into labour too early. So yeah, it was really straightforward, it was quick and it was done, and here she was. Very successful birth, yes. I probably don't think that the information about breech babies is available to all women. I do think that there's a stigma about some of the procedures and things that you can go through, especially because I had a girlfriend that I discussed how it was for me, and her obstetrician and her together still went down the C-section path. So that for me was really interesting, because I was on the phone to her as I was walking out saying, it turned, it's easy, don't worry about it. So I do definitely think there's a stigma in you know, the process that it is. I did go on and have a look about reading about it. It's online, and I think most of the information I saw was about people waiting for their breech babies to turn, and you know, a lot of discussion about, you know, do they turn themselves? Will I wait until 38 weeks and see if it turns, and what have you? So I suppose there's more about the intervention of getting a procedure like this done, or waiting and seeing if the baby does it itself and continuing down the track. So there was probably, I mean, once I knew about the ECV, the actual procedure, I did look that up and have a look at, you know, what it was like. But at that time, if I can honestly remember that I wouldn't have watched a video because I was a bit scared about what it was like I didn't want to see it because I was a bit scared about what it was going to be like for me. So there was a lot of videos that you could have watched, but I decided to keep it in the hands of who was doing it for me. And now that I've actually had the procedure, I'd say take a look. I probably didn't look because my idea was that it was going to be painful, it was going to be difficult, and all of those kind of things. So all I wanted to go in is, let's go in blind, let's not worry about it, we want to do it, and the doctors will take care of it, or the obstetrician will take care of it. But now, knowing that it was as simple as it was, I would definitely go down the path of, you know, finding the information, looking for it, and getting this baby turned so that, you know, we could do it on our own. What I would tell ladies that have breech babies at term is I would still have a go at seeing if there was any type of intervention like a ECV you could have. If you wanted to have your baby naturally, I mean, it just comes down to, you know, whether you want to do it in the labour ward or whether you want to do it, have the pain afterwards. You're going to have it at some point. So yeah, I would definitely say to women that have full-term breech babies is, if it hasn't turned itself, you know, have a go of getting it turned. My ECV was simple. The process was not painful. Yes, there's this heavy type of pushing on your stomach. It was completed in about 5 minutes, and then the monitoring started on the baby, and that was it. I'd recommend it to anybody. The difference between Patrick's birth and Annabelle's birth, or leading up to both of them, was that the information with Patrick wasn't offered as much as it was with Annabelle. I sought the information out for when Annabelle was born. I was given, with Patrick, not as many options. We didn't go down, this is what you could do, or this is what you could do. So ECV, for example, or C-section. It was very much, if this baby remained breech, we would go down the path of a C-section. So for me, I went in for this third baby saying, give me the information, I want to make a decision about how I deliver this child, and you know, we chose to have her turned, and it was the best decision I made. But 3 years ago it wasn't offered as much. I'm absolutely glad I found this information. I would have gone down the path of having another C-section if it wasn't offered to me. So again, I would have gone down that path of trying to get back on my feet after the operation. So yeah, it was definitely offered, and we looked at it much more closely this time.